रागादिरोगान् सततानुशक्तान् शेषकायः प्रसृतान् शेषान् औत्सुक्यमोहारतिदान् जघान यो पूर्ववैद्याय नमोऽस्तु तस्मै. In the previous class, we had discussed about Ajirna. There were 2 episodes of the Annavahasrotas. So in that we had discussed the first episode was of kriyashareera, that is the Pachana Kriya, and the second episode was related to Ajirna, Nidana and the Chikitsa part. So while we were discussing about that, we had come across a shloka called, with the heading of Samanya Ajirna Lakshana, which said about Mutra Roga as one lakshana of the Samanya Ajirna Lakshana. It was not just the Mutra Roga, they had mentioned clearly about Mutra Krichra and Mutraghata, right? So we had also discussed one more shloka while reading about the Pachana Kriya, how it happens in the body. So we had discussed how the Avastha Pakas happen and finally how Sara and Kitta Vibhajana happens. We had discussed until how Sara is formed in the GIT, right? But we had not discussed about how Kitta is produced in the GI, in the Annavahasrotas. So today we will discuss about uh, Mutra Roga. So this is the first episode of the Mutra Roga. So the topic of this episode would be Utpatti of Mutra. Uh, in the modern physiology, in the counterpart, we have so many pages of detailed description about the excretory system, how the urine production happens, what are all the molecules, what are all the hormones which influences the production, conduction, and also the elimination of the urine, right? So what are all the molecules which are very important in carrying out this function in a very smooth way. But as I started discussing this with my teachers, also some of my juniors and seniors, so I came across many loop points. Might be that was deficient understanding of mine, or it might also be that the proper explanation is not in one part of the Samhita. It actually spreads throughout the Samhita and not just one Samhita, across many Samhitas. So to put them all together, combined, then we can get the proper understanding, the physiology of the Utpatti of Mutra, also the pravritti of Mutra, and how at all the deviation of this physiology creates Mutra Roga. So when I started the discussion of Mutra Utpatti, the kriyashareera of the Mutra Utpatti. So one quote struck me. So this is the thing. Our physiology creates disease to give us the feedback, to let us know we have an unbalanced perspective or we are not being loving and grateful. So the body's signs and symptoms are not something terrible. So the very first point of this is what I wanted to highlight. So our physiology creates the disease to give us the feedback, to let us know we have an unbalanced perspective. So why actually this series was started? Saying there is importance for this particular logic, that is from Kriya Sharira, then to Roga Nidana, then to the Kaya Chikitsa. This is a proper process, right? So understand the Chikitsa part properly, we have to understand the Roga part. To understand the Roga part, we have to know what was the normal physiology and anatomy first. So this quote was really effective in making my point of view very much clear. So our physiology creates disease to give us the feedback. So in order to understand the disease, first let us understand what is the physiology and how this feedback mechanism actually occurs in the body. Okay. So my special thanks to Dr. Mamta Murthy ma'am, professor in HOD Department of Rachana Sharira, GMC Bengaluru. She has guided me immensely and encouraged me throughout the whole process of compiling many shlokas and to understand them, how to interpret them, and how to correlate them with modern anatomy and physiology part. Might be that I was lacking in the confidence that whatever I thought as a theory is actually the theory, is actually what is happening in the body. So I wasn't sure of many things. She taught me many things in this meantime in the last 1 to 1.5 week while we started discussing about the Mutra Roga. So Ma'am, thank you very much for guiding us in this part. So Acharya Charaka says, Rogamadau pariksheta tadanantaram aushadam. So from where this pariksha has to start? We understood. So we have to do the examination first, then we have to get into the chikitsa part. So what is this pariksha then? Is it investigations, or is it lakshana, the signs and symptoms, or is it finding the hetu, or is it understanding what's normal and deviated rachana and kriyashareera? So if I just go with the investigations, I might miss out on the clinical symptoms and signs, what is actually being presented in the body, in the patient, right? So now we understood investigation is one part, rather seeing the clinical symptoms and signs is the second part. So if I just understand this and just bump in to the next process of giving the chikitsa, I might miss out on the etiology which is actually causing this. But many doctors, I think, they come until the stage of etiology. So understanding it, like at least the Ayurveda physicians would never miss on taking the proper history on what is the hetu behind any roga. But even as Ayurveda Vaidyas, what we are missing, I mean, what I think that we are missing is the understanding of what's normalcy and what's the deviated physiology, right? So, without any deviated physiology, a disease cannot manifest. So, in other words, to say, if a pathology has manifested, if a disease has set in, it must be a deviation in the normalcy of the anatomy and physiology. So, why don't we understand the disease from Kriya Sharira point of view or from the Rachana Sharira point of view, so that it makes the topic very clear and in a very logical way, it keeps us going, and it makes our work still more easier than just not sticking on to investigations or just seeing the clinical symptoms or just reminding ourselves about the etiology. So why don't we go one step further and understand what is rachana and the kriya sharira point of view in understanding any disease. So this is what we intend to learn today. Okay. So what is roga? A very simple definition of what is roga is rogastha dosha vaishamyam, right? So then what is chikitsa? Dhatu samyak kriya chokta tantrasyasya prayojanam. While saying this quotation, we understand it is dhatu samya that what we have to do, right? Rogastha dosha vaishamyam, dosha samyam arogata. So what is this chikitsa? Chikitsa is intended to bring back the arogya, or to establish the arogya back in the person. So what we have to do? Dosha samyata or dhatu samyata. This is what we are intending to do, right? So first, let us know about the objective, why we are starting with this series of Mutra Roga and understanding from the Kriya Sharira, Roga Nidana and the Kaya Chikitsa point of view. Keep in mind, I have quoted two words, Dosha Samyam Arogata and Dhatu Samya Kriya Chokta Tantrasyasya Prayojanam. One more is Rogastu Dosha Vaishamyam. So keep these 3 points together and let us go through this shloka. This shloka is from Charaka Sutra, 18th chapter. So objectives, I think objectives need not come always like in a point wise or saying it in English. I thought let me put the objective from Charaka's point of view rather than my point of view. So sa eva kupito doshaha samuthana visheshataha sthanantaragataschaiva janayanti amayan bahun. तस्माद् विकार प्रकृतिरधिष्ठानान्तराणि च समुत्थान विशेषां च बुद्ध्वा कर्म समाचरेत् यो हेतत् त्रितयं ज्ञात्वा कर्माण्यारभते विशक् ज्ञानपूर्वं यथा न्यायं स कर्मसु न मुह्यति. What is the importance of this objective now? So these few points. First of all, I said rogastu dosha vaishamyam. So I have to give importance to understanding what is dosha, what is its normalcy, and how it behaves in its kupita avastha. This is my first attempt in understanding. Second, samutthana visheshataha. What is the rachana sharira? Where actually the roga occurs? Samutthana visheshataha. Or where actually this dosha prakopa happens or dosha kshaya happens. So can we understand it as where dosha prakopa and shaya happens is the same place where actually in the previous state in the where the disease has not set in still, that was a time when this place itself was being the site of normalcy of the dosha physiology. But now there is a disease manifestation or there is process of disease that has set in saying dosha prakopa or dosha kshaya. In the very same samutthana, there is roga. So the stage for the normalcy of the dosha and also for the deviated physiology of the dosha, the samutthana must be the same. So I have to give importance to rachana sharira as well. Sthanantara gataschaiva. So one is the sthana where it was normally functioning. Other sthana is where it has traveled now, where it has radiated now. So in order to move from one stage to the other stage, there is a process that is called as gati. Right? In the previous class, when we were discussing about the Ajirna, we had discussed about three different varieties of gati. Shayasthanam cha vridhischa, or Urdhvagami, Adhogami, Tiryagami, or even the Roga Margas. These were the three kind of gatis that we had learned. So my objective here, the first objective is to learn about the dosha, its normalcy and its deviated state. Second is to learn about the samutthana in its normalcy and its deviated state. Third one is to learn about the sthanantara, which is the other samutthana. Fourth one is what is the gati. Okay. Then fifth one, I understand because if all these happens, there is some deviated physiology, then amayan bahun janayanti. So next perspective of mine is to, next objective of mine is to learn about the amaya. So before reading the amaya, I'm just establishing the fact that kriyashareera is so much important. Okay, let's move on to the further shloka. Tasmad vikara prakritihi adhishthanantarani cha samutthana vishesham cha buddhva karma samachare. So the next point what I have to do is to understand these things, very peculiar things in a logical way. Tasmad vikara prakriti radhishtana antarani cha samutthana vishesham cha. I have to understand all these things in a logical way. Then I have to decide the chikitsa, karma samachare. So one who does this in a very skillful way, then there is no, you cannot expect a failure. If you have understood the physiology, pathology, and as well as the disease manifested state and its chikitsa in a proper way, then there is nothing called as failure. Everything or every case that you treat will be a success. This is the objective of starting this series in presented by Ayu-Chintana in understanding the kriyashareera, roga nidana and the kaya chikitsa point of view. Okay. So the table of contents for this particular slide, we will be going through what is Mutra, Rachana Sharira and the kriyashareera of Mutra Utpatti. This is what we will be doing today, the first episode. The second episode, we will be taking about the kriyashareera of the Mutra Pravritti, Prakrita Mutra Karma and Mutra Kshaya and Vritti. And in the further episodes, we will be talking about each Mutra Roga. Okay. So what is Mutra? Mutra Shakriti Annamalav. So this is the very first and simplest of the definition that we can understand. Mutra Shakriti Annamalav. So Mutra is one Annamala, while the other Annamala is Shakrit. So this is the reference from Ashtanga Hridaya Sutra, first chapter. While at the very first they mention about what are the doshas, what are the dhatu, and what are the malas. So at the very first they have given this explanation. Then again in the Kitta, while explaining about the Kitta Utpatti in the Grahani Chikitsa Adhyaya Charaka, they have given Mutra and Purisha are the Kitta Bhaga. So from there also we can understand Mutra is the Kitta Bhaga, or in other words it is Annamala. Okay, just 2 or 3 seconds previously I said about this. Roga Adhisthana is Sharira and Manas, as well as Roga Utpanna Karaka Dosha is Sharirika Dosha and Manasika Dosha. That means to say the stage for the normal anatomy physiology is as same as the stage for where the Roga can manifest, deviating the anatomy and physiology. Why this happens is because Roga Adhisthana happens in Sharira and Manas, as well as Roga Utpanna Karaka Dosha is also Sharirika Dosha and Manasika Dosha. So there cannot be any other stage I mean to say, the normalcy is at one stage and the deviated thing happens at the another stage. This cannot happen in the body. They are the same. That is why understanding kriyashareera is important. Controlling mechanisms for the Mutra Utpatti. So how I have divided the slide is site of production, site of conduction and filtration, and site of elimination and discharge. So in 3 points we will be discussing from further on. Site of Mutra Utpatti. So now we will understand what is the Rachana Sharira. That means to say where Mutra Utpatti happens. Okay. The biggest of the answer or the broad answer what we can say is Koshtha. So how Mutra Utpatti happens in the Koshtha now. So there are some other small parts, or we can understand it as level by level the Mutra Utpatti happens. Okay. In that, the first one is Grahani, the Agnisthana, then which helps is Shashti, the Pitta Dharakala, and then comes Purisha Dharakala. Okay. These are the three things under the broad heading of Koshtha, which helps us with the Mutra Utpatti. Then, physiology of the Mutra Utpatti. Here I start with the kriyashareera. So there were many different shlokas that I could collect and bring them into such and such a order, but just showing you some of the very basic shlokas that we can where we can pick from. Paktihi pakaha ushma aushnyam pachatyannam vibhajate sarakittau pruthaktata. This is the explanation from Ashtanga Hridaya Sutra 12th chapter while discussing about Pachaka Pitta. Then Veganam Pravartanam Vata Vinmutradinam Bahirnirasanam. So this is from the Vega Adhyaya. Then Dhatunam Samyak Gatihi Margena Adrita Avilambita Sansharaha. This is also from the 12th chapter. Samano Agni Samipastaha Koshte Charati Sarvataha. This, as you know, is the Lakshana of the Samana Vayu from the Ashtanga Hridaya Sutra 12. Apano Apanagashtroni, this also from Sutra 12. And Shepta Bahirmalanam, Sthulanu Srotasam Bheta. This is from the Vadakala Kaliya Adhyaya, Charaka Sutra 12th chapter. Okay. Then there is one more shloka down. Kapadamnam cha Sheshanam Yatkarotyavalambanam. This is about the Avalambaka Kapha shloka. So why I have kept these things is these are the shlokas, some of the shlokas which we encounter on a daily basis, but we don't actually go into the depths of these shloka, reading about how the grammar points have been there in these shloka. What are the tikas explaining about these shlokas? If we had gone through the tika part and also how the grammar is set in this shloka, we could have understood Mutra Utpatti or Purisha Utpatti and their Vega Pravartana in a much more manifested, much more logical way, I would say. I mean to say, there is much explanation that we can bring in just by reading the tikas of these shlokas, but we have failed in going through the tikas in a very thorough manner. So let's not just think about why we haven't done even at this stage. So at least today we let's go to the depth of the tikas and as well as the other references from the many different other samhitas which we have. So what is Mutra Utpatti? I have understood this Mutra Utpatti in the 5 W questions. So what is Mutra Utpatti? How Mutra Utpatti? Why Mutra Utpatti? When? Where? All these questions were asked. And what the answers that I have got from the references of different samhita, I have put it in an order. Okay. What is Mutra Utpatti then? Mutra Utpatti literally means production of Mutra. Raw material is needed for the production of Mutra. Now comes the question, is it production or is it deduction? Where exactly production happens, where exactly deduction happens? What I mean from the word production and deduction is, I'm not giving something as a raw material and asking the body to produce Mutra. I'm actually giving I'm actually giving Anna from which the Pachana happens and then it turns into Ahara Parinamakara Bhava. In that one is Kleda, in that which relates into the Udaka Bhava, then it further deduce, like it gets decreased, and then it becomes mutra. So mutra utpatti exactly means not production, but it is actually the deduction from the anna what we initially ingest. Okay. Then comes separation of the kleda bhava and the drava rupi pitta. So what is mutra utpatti? Now you understood, right? Mutra utpatti is the production of mutra, where we need raw material for the production of mutra. So from this raw material, are we producing or are we deducting? So it is actually the deduction process which is happening. Separation of the kleda bhava and the drava rupi pitta. Why mutra utpatti? Whatever we eat would have just passed out or just got eliminated from the body as a solid waste. So why do we even need mutra? Why do we even need a liquid waste? Why do we need that in the body? Or what is the function that is happening in the body such that it demands the existence of such and such a waste which is in drava form? Okay. Ahara consumed has four types of substances. We all know this, right? Ashitam, Khaditam, Pitam, Leadham. This has been given in Charaka, in Sushruta, in various other Samhitas as well. We know this point very clearly, but we don't know. What we don't know here is what is the Murta Bhaga in the food, what is the Drava Bhaga in this food. We understand there are four types of substances, but clearly Charaka Vimana in the second chapter says, Murtanam iti Ashya Kadhyanam, Dravanam iti Lehyapeyanam. So, in the very food that we are taking, we have two parts. It is not that body wants to eliminate the waste in two forms. It is actually what we are taking, the food itself is in two forms. So one is Ashya, when one is the Murta Bhaga, consisting of the Ashrita and Khadita type of foods, substances, and the other one is the Drava Bhaga, which is about Lehya and Peya. Okay. It has Murta Bhaga. So the Murta Bhaga consists of the Ghana Bhaga, also the Sneha Yukta Bhaga, plus there is Drava Bhaga, the second part. What this says, Tadyatha, Ekam Avakashamsham Murtanam Ahara Vikaraanam, Ekam Dravanam, Ekam Punarvata Pitta Shleshmanam, Yetavatim hi Ahara Matram Upayunjano, Na Amatra Aharajam Kinchit Ashubham Prapnoti. So the very first thing where you can prevent the disease further, which can happen as a Mutra Roga, which can happen related to Purisha, which can happen related to any other disease in the body, the first prevention what you can do is to take the food in the Matra, in the Matra, proper Matra, if you have taken, then the first prevention is there. Okay. Why I'm stressing on this point is because when we think about the Mutra Roga, we generally don't get into these finest points that are given in the Samhita. So when okay, let's say a BPH, a patient suffering from BPH comes to your OPD. So what do you say? So you have to tell him what are the pathya and apatya. You have to tell him, sir, this is the thing that has gone wrong in your physiology because of your wrong food practices, wrong lifestyle practices. So you could have prevented from such a thing, or where actually the prevention should have started. You can guide him about that. Okay. Now this patient has already got BPH. Okay. Someone who comes to you, say like 40 or 34 years of age, a male patient who might be at the risk of getting BPH. You sense that. So what you have to say to this patient? Sir, see, this is the prevention that you can do so that BPH is not manifested in you. Okay. What how you can ask the patient for the prevention thing to, I mean, actually he has to practice the prevention part. How do you say this? You can say, okay, this much amount of water you can take, this much amount of water you cannot take, this much amount of food you can take, this much amount of food you cannot take, or these kinds of food you can take, these kinds of rasa you can take, at this time of the day you can take the ahara and the pana. So what you are actually suggesting him, it's not just about what are all the different kinds of food he can take or different contraindicated foods that mean he has to be mean he has to avoid. First and foremost, you are saying about the matra of the ahara, of the anna, right? So with this also you can prevent Mutra Roga from occurring in the person. So I am stressing on this point. Ahara Parinamakaraha tu ime bhava bhavanti. What are they? Tadyatha Ushma, Vayuhu, Kledaha, Snehaha, Kalaha, Samayogascheti. What I understand from this shloka is, what are all the factors that are needed for the parinama of the ahara? You have taken ahara, this is the entry point. Then at the exit point, you must be having mutra and the purisha, right? What are all the things that happens in the middle of ingestion and excretion? This is called as parinama. How ahara gets parinama, that transformed into sarabhaga and the kittabhaga. So in this process, there are 6 things that happens. Ushma, Vayu, Kleda, Sneha, Kala and Samayoga. Just in brief to say, Ushma. So how much Agni, quality, quantity of Agni. How much Vayu, quality, quantity of the Vayu. In particular, say Pranavayu at one stage, Udana Vayu in the second stage, third stage it is Samana Vayu. So how these Vayu helps. Then the Kleda Bhaga. So I would just take an example of saying how the enzymes and saliva get mixed with the food and forms into a proper bolus, so that there is easy movement from the gala to the amashaya, or even in the amashaya, how Kleda Bhaga is helping. Then there is Sneha Bhaga also. Then Kala. Kala is like at what particular time the digestion is happening, or which hormone is actually suggesting, okay, say now gastrin hormone, you have to be produced in such and such quantity, or how much enzyme should be formed at particular time of the digestion. So these are all the things where the ahara parinamakara bhava may go wrong and further cause a mutra roga. So the second part where you have to take care in the kriyashareera part is about ahara parinamakara bhava. Then why mutra utpatti? This is one more shloka from the Charaka Chikitsa where in a very thorough manner they have explained about how the food is ingested into the amashya, what are all the things that happens there. And they have also explained in Charaka Sharira 6 about what are all the different functions of these ahara parinamakara bhavas. Ushma pachati, vayur apakarshati, kledaha shaithilyam apadayati. So the ghana ahara, what you have taken, what you have ingested, would not go directly into the esophagus, or or to the pharynx, to the esophagus, and then to the stomach. There should be some lubricating thing which actually facilitates the motion from the mouth to the amashya part. And then further also from the amashya to grahani to pakvashaya also, there should be some lubrication that is happening where the bolus is easily transferable from one part of the body to the other part of the body, right? So, which brings this lubrication, which divides or breaks down the hard material into softened material, that's kleda bhava, that is needed for the body, right? Then sneho mardavam janayati, that also brings in that softness in the body. One divides, the other one brings the softness. Where are these two derived from? One is from the rasasara bhaga, other one from the mutra. I mean to say, though the mutra is considered as the kitta bhaga, it also has some function in the body. That is kleda vahana. That function is from the proper mutra that is formed in the body, which stays in the body for certain time, and which has the function of kleda vahana. So if mutra is not uh, produced in proper quantity and it lacks in proper quality, this kleda and sneha bhaga will be decreased. So ahara parinama will not happen properly. So now ahara can be the hetu of mutra roga, we had understood. We had also understood the matra of ahara is so much important. Third, we have understood that if the proper mutra, if the proper sarakita vibhajana wouldn't happen in the further process of the kriya sharira, then they might also badly influence on the ahara parinamakara bhava. So the production of mutra is of so much importance. Then when mutra utpatti happens, dvikala ahara sevana is what has been suggested by the Samhita. Dvikala ahara parinamana is also suggested by the Samhita. I mean to say, it is explained in such a way Dvikala ahara sevana is done so that 2 times parinama will happen. Sayam pratascha iti vachanat sayam bhojane krite yadi pratah pratascha krite yadi sayam sukhena parinamanam तथा स्थानासनादिषु सुखानुवृत्तिर् भवति तदा मात्रावत् भोजनम् अनेन कृतम् इति ज्ञेयम्. So what they are saying, the food that is taken in the morning time would be digested by the sayankala, that's evening time, and whatever food that is taken in the evening time would be digested till the next morning. They are giving particular time frame for the digestion to properly occur in its whole and soul basis. Not just, okay, digestion happened, but the elimination, but the absorption, assimilation, and elimination has not happened. But what today's generation is doing, just after the digestion is done and they feel light, they want to take up food. But the further process of digestion is still there. That is why Ayurveda says about the Pachana Kala. It's not just about the digestion process that happens in your SI, small intestine. It's not just about that. It's about how the parinama is done to each and every cell until and unless that has happened in the body, the whole digestion process has not yet halted. So until that, you must not take food again. It becomes an adhyasana again. So that is why they have told Dvikala Ahara Sevana will do Dvikala Ahara Parinamana so that Mutra and Purisha would be properly formed. When Mutra Utpatti is actually discussed, there's one more point from Kiriyashareera 4th chapter, 19th shloka Tika saying, Etamevartham shlokena Ashabhojane and so and so. They have given the explanation of what is Ashana Khadana, Khadita, Leha Peya. Then there is one particular word that they have mentioned. Tadannam ashitadi visheshena akrantam annam jiryati. Yatha kalam कालानतिक्रमेण कालान् अतिक्रमेण तीक्ष्ण मध्य मंदाग्निषु मात्रा द्रव्य गुरुलघु उचितकाल अनतिक्रमेण. So what is happening here is when proper matra of the food in the proper palatable form is taken, it should get digested in that particular time only. There should be some uchita kala. Okay. So while mentioning about this, from the book Ghanekar, I have taken what is the explanation of Yatha Kala. I would read it to you. Yatha Kala means उचित काल में साधारणतया सेवन किया हुआ अन्न पाचक और शोषित होकर मल के रूप में स्थूलांत्र में 4.5 घंटे के बाद आता है. अर्थात पाचन और शोषण के लिए 4.5 घंटे का औसत काल होता है. आयुर्वेद में पाचन और शोषण का काल 3 to 6 घंटे का बताया है. याम मध्ये न भोक्तव्यम याम युग्मम न लंघयेत. याम मध्ये रसोत्पत्तिः याम युग्म बलक्षयः. So this is what has been explained by Yoga Ratnakara, saying if you take the food within the yama, then the rasa utpatti is still happening at that time. It has not yet properly formed, but you are interrupting the digestive system to start the second digestion process in the meantime. So what you are actually doing, you are actually hampering the process of rasa utpatti. In other terms, you are also hampering the particular time of utpatti of mutra and purisha. So now are you understanding what is kala anatikramena in the two phrases here, uchita kala anatikramena? So yama madhye na bhoktavyam yama yugmam na langhaye. This is what has been given. Okay. This is what we have to understand, that when the rasa utpatti is still happening, we must not give any food in the meantime, so that we take care of proper mutra utpatti, proper purisha utpatti. I'm just connecting the points where we have to give importance. Even in the Mutra Roga, it is not just about Ajirna, which is related to Ahara Kala and Ahara Pachana. It is also Mutra Roga, which is directly or indirectly related to Ajirna. In other words, related to the Pachana Kriya. In other words, it is going back, it is related to the Ahara Sevana, Kala as well as Matra. Okay. How Mutra Utpatti happens? Coming to the main point now. Grahani is the Pachaka Pitta Sthana. This we know. it does the vibhajana of the Sarakitta. This has been explained from Ashtanga Hridaya Sutra 12. This shloka we already went through, right? What happens here? Sushruta gives a very detailed explanation, little more detailed explanation of what Ashtanga Hridaya had said. Ashitam kadhitam pitam leedham koshtagatam nrunam tajjiryate yatha kalam shoshitam pitta tejasa. So Ashtanga Hridaya is a text which has come after Sushruta Samhita. So it has been given still more in a condensed form, like giving you a nectar, saying Pachaka Pitta Sthana does the Vibhajana of Sara and Kitta. While Sushruta has given little more detailed explanation how this Sara Kitta Vibhajana happens, what is the action of the Pachaka Pitta Sthana. Okay. So there were 4 types of food substances which went into the koshta. It was received by the koshta. Then the digestion process, the jirna prakriya started. Yatha kalam, at proper time. There was shoshana, which happened because of the tejasa bhaga of the pitta. Pitta has many other gunas as well, right? So, coming specifically to the tejasa bhava, this shoshana will happen. What is this shoshana? We understood there was kleda and sneha which were helping the taken food to melt them, to soften them, to divide them into smaller particles, so that the amashaya, when receiving it, can actually put them directly into the digestion process. So then the amashaya, from there the bolus went into the grahani. So here there is grahani is the agnyashaya, where there is it is the adhisthana for the agni, right? So this agni is doing the shoshana of the food. Then further, yatha kalam, kala anatikramena tikshna madhya manda agnishu. So it is not just in person who is having very proper agni. In all the other states, like different prakriti person would be having different quality of the agni, right? In all the agni forms, if the matra ahara is taken properly, then the proper digestion will happen. See, when I say just proper digestion, let's not look just into the factor of saying time duration of the digestion. It also means at proper time, from the modern perspective I'm speaking, at proper time enzyme is released, at proper time HCl is released, at proper time the bile duct is opened, bile is released, at proper time the pancreatic duct is opened and the pancreatic enzymes would pull in into the duodenum. At proper time the peristaltic movement might happen, then they enter into the small intestine. All these come under the term yathakala. Okay, it is not just about digesting or cooking of the food material. It is not just about the proper time of that. All these have to happen at proper time. There should be some coordination of how the food is moving, as well as to how the enzymes and hormones are released at particular time, and also to the motion of the food. Food is not just sitting in amashya, then suddenly shifting to the grahani, suddenly shifting into the pakvashaya as one whole bolus. It is actually coming in parts and parts and parts. While getting digested, it is also moving. And it's getting digested while it's moving. So it is not halting for much time. It is actually in motion when the digestion is happening at that particular site also. So this we have to think about yatha kala, which is actually helping this movement part. Samano agni samipastha koshte charati sarvatah annam gruhnati pachati vivechayati munchati. So samana vayu has 4 functions, that is annasya grahanam, to properly collect the food material that is coming into the amashya. Gruhitva pachanam, what it has collected should undergo pachana. Then whatever it has done the pachana should be now divided or to be differentiated as Sara and Kitta Bhaga. Then this Kitta Bhaga has to be further propelled to the next stage of the digestion, that is to say to the Pitta Dharakala, then to the Purisha Dharakala. This movement from the Pitta Dharakala to the propulsion movement from the Pitta Dharakala to the Purisha Dharakala is the action of Samana Vata. So while we think about treating the Mutra Roga, let's say Mutra Utpatti, there is some problem with the Mutra Utpatti part of the Mutra Roga in that patient. We have to think where exactly is the action site of the Samana Vayu, where actually is the site of Apana Vayu. Apana Vayu is where Mutra Pravritti is happening. For the Mutra Pravritti, Apana Vata is helping more. Okay. Then once Purisha Dhara Kala has done its work, then further the Apana Vata is actually taking its, taking the control over to it. But before that, in the Purisha Dhara Kala, in the Pakvashya, in the Laghu Antra, in the Antra, in the Laghu Antra, then in the Pitta Dhara Kala, all this is the action side of the Samana Vata. So while I'm deciding the chikitsa for that particular Mutra Roga, I have to think about when I have to give the medicine. What is the Aushadha Kala of this type of the disease? So if I can pinpoint that the problem of the Mutra Roga lies in the time of Samana Vata. Time, I mean to say, in the digestion process, I have to restrict the time where it is actually the action of Samana Vata and where it is Apana Vata. So when I have to give the medicine, if I can understand the problem is related to Samana Vata, I have to give the Aushadha in that particular time. Right? Then if there is the problem of Apana Vata, then the Aushadha where I give has to be in the Aushadha Kala of the Apana Vata. What we do, we don't think of this. We just say BD, TID, QID. Will that work? Absolutely not. So when I'm thorough with the kriyashareera, I can pinpoint the problem is with Samanavata. Then I have to administer the medicine at that part, at that point of time, so that the Mutra Roga can be treated. Then if it is Apanavata, then further at that Aushadha Kala, then Apanavata related Mutra Roga will be treated. So just keep in mind when you are deciding the chikitsa as well as the Aushadha Kala for these particular deviation from the physiology. Then again, Shashti Pitta Dhara. Ya Chaturvidham Annapanam Amashayat Prachyutam Pakvashayopasthitam Dharayati. So what it is doing, this Pitta Dhara Kala, what it is doing, Chaturvidham Annapanam, which has now, this Chaturvidham Annapana, which was received by the Amashaya, is now given or it is now propelled to the next stage where it is a site of Pittadhara. So Pittadhara has the action of collecting it as well as digest it and then further release it to the Pakvashaya. Okay, these are the three actions of the Pittadhara Kala. So what it is doing now, Amashayat Prachyutam, that is Amashaya was the site of Kapha. Kaphashayat Bhrashtam, that means to say which has exited now, that bolus of food which has exited from the Kaphashaya, that's Amashaya. Pakvashaya upasthitam, Pakvashaya gamanaya upasthitam, Pittasthanam sampraptam. This bolus of food from the Kaphashaya has to reach Pakvashaya at one point of time. But in the middle, there lies something called as Pittasthana. It has now come there. तथा च संग्रहः षष्ठी पित्तधरा नाम पक्वामाशय मध्यस्थ. So where is the location of the Pittadhara Kala? It is in between the Pakvashaya and the Amashaya. Sa hi antaragnyadhishtanataya amapakvashayor madhye chaturvidhamannam balena vidarya pitta tejasa shoshayanti pachati. So what it is doing? Forcefully, that means to say more energy is needed for the retainment of the food in the Pitta Dhara Kala. But that much amount of energy was not needed to hold this in a proper place in the Amashaya as well as to let it out to the Pakvashaya. But in Pitta Dhara Kala, there needs more energy. Chaturvidham annam balena vidharya pitta tejasa shoshayanti, and it further carries out the digestion process. Then is the action of Samanavata. How the Samanavata plays its role here. Sushruta has one more shloka from Nidanasthana. Ama pakvashaya charaha samano vahni sangataha so annam pachati tajjamsha visheshan vinivaktihi. So what it is saying, in the Ashtanga we read samano agni samipastaha. That means to say the action site of Samana Vayu is somewhere in and around the side of the Agni. In Sushruta, we are understanding Ama Pakvashaya Charaha Samano Vahni Sangataha. That means to say always the action of Samana Vayu is accordingly to the Vahni, is in coordination with the Agni. So if Agni is more, Samanavata is more. They are like two faces of a single coin. So saying if the Samanavata is in proper quantity quality, Agni also lies in proper quantity quality. They always work in coordination. Okay. So Annam Pachati Tajjamsha Visheshan Vinivaktihi. Now particularly they are mentioning here. What is this Visheshan Vinivaktihi? Visheshan, Rasa, Dosha, Mutra, Purishani. So there we understood Vivechana Karma was also an action of Samana Vayu, right? So what is the Vishesha? What is the differentiating substances that has to be differentiated by the Samana Vayu? First one is Rasa. Second one is the Dosha. That means to say the Poshaka Bhava of the doshas. Third one is Mutra. And fourth one is Purisha. So there are four things that it has to differentiate now. It was not just about one Sara, one Kitta. Not just this. It has to do more. One Rasa, Dosha, Mutra, Purisha. Okay. Then a little more detailed discussion about Purisha Dharakala. Antakoshtha iti कोष्ठस्य अन्तर्मध्यमन्तः कोष्ठं पुनस्तस्मिन् मलं मूत्रपुरीशरूपतया vibhajati. So what is the function of the Purisha Dharakala now? Okay, first we will learn about what is Purisha Dharakala. So what is the action site of Purisha Dharakala? Panchami Purisha Dhara Nama yo antakoshthe malam abhivibhajate pakvashayastha. So main action site is pakvashaya. What it does there is mala vibhajana. Okay. So it is not just saying large intestine or it is not just saying small intestine. Let's keep it as a simple thing, saying it as pakvashaya. So what they are saying, specifically they have mentioned the term, the inside part, antakoshthe malam vibhajate pakvashayastha. The inside, the mucous membranes, we can think of the membranes that are lining the inner part of the ashayas that are there in the koshta. They are actually causing all these digestive mechanisms. One more shloka is there. So what is the action side, the broad action side of Purisha Dharakala? It starts from Yakrit. Just keep in mind, further discussing about how Mutra travels from the GIT to the other part of the body, then we will come across this Yakrit part. Okay. But how smart should be Acharya Sushruta, while saying about Purishadhara Kala only, he has mentioned about Yakrit also. So the Sarakitta Vibhajana, this Mala formation is not just the action of Pakvashaya or Malashaya or Purishadhara Kala and Maladhara Kala. He has also mentioned about Yakrit. Okay, even today in the modern physiology, we have, we see that liver can do so many things. Liver has so many functions. Sometimes even more than what a brain can do, what a heart can do. It has so many functions in itself. Yakrit samantat koshtham cha tatha antrani samashrita undukastham vibhajate malam maladhara kala. So this is the explanation given by Acharya Sushrita. Okay. One more explanation saying vivechayeti means rasa mutra purishani. So there are three substances that has to be formed. And Vruddha Vagbhata, Ashtanga Sangraha, is making a much more level higher step of a comment saying Panchame Purishadara Sahi Antram Pakvashayashraya Tatra Undukastam Malam Vibhajati Malam Vibhajate Mutra Purisha Rupataya Vibhagam Karoti Gayitu Vibhajate Tasmat Koshthat Prutak Karoti iti Vyakhyati. Just give importance to the Vibhakti Pratyaya here. It is about Panchami Vibhakti. It is not here about Tritiya Vibhakti. That means to say, in the Koshtena or Koshtha does the action. They are not saying about this. What is the action of this Maladhara Kala? It is not just differentiating Mala into Mutra and Purisha and not just forming the Poshaka Mutra Bhava, Poshaka Purisha Bhava. They also have the action of making sure that this Poshaka Mutra exits from the koshta. Koshthat, it separates from the koshta and enters some other realm of the body. So just keep this in mind, how understanding, I mean, what is the level of understanding of Ashtanga Sangraha in saying Mutra, which is being formed, the Poshaka Mutrabhava, which is being formed in the Maladhara Kala, doesn't just stay there or doesn't just directly get into the Basti, doesn't just directly get into the Vrikka. It actually exits from the Koshtha and goes to some other part. There is a channel. They're hinting us these books, just keep in mind, these books, these samhitas are not written under the purview of a telescope, under the purview of a microscope, just 100 or 200 years back, or even 400 years back. They are thousands of years back. They had such detailed information about what anatomy is actually there, what physiology is actually happening for the Mutra Utpatti, Purisha Utpatti, for any other physiological component that is happening in the body. Okay, let's move on. This is a very important shloka. Ma'am guided me very well understanding this shloka. So there are 6 points here, 6 kriyapadas that I have just highlighted. Please stay with me, students. I know this is taking this is taking much time today, just understanding the kriyashareera of the mutra, but it's very important. We have missed out on all these points. That is why I'm giving much more importance and much more time for understanding this kriyashareera points. So another 25 slides are there to go. So just now we have considered we have completed 25 slides. So still more 25 slides are there to go for today. Adogamastu Vata Mutra Purisha Shakrit Artavadini Adhovahanti. This is the action of Adhogami Dhamani. I'll read it out once again. Please keep this thing in mind. Adhogamastu. What is the action of Adhogami Dhamani? Vata, Mutra, Purisha, Shukra, Artavadini, Adhovahanti. This is the action of Adhogami Dhamani. So what it is doing, where does it start, where does it end? When we read about muscle, what we do? We read about the muscle as well as read about the insertion site of the muscle, right? We do this. So where they start, where they get inserted to. So we read about this. So here also, certainly where this Dhamani starts and till where is the action site of this Adhogami Dhamani is what has been explained. You will be amazed actually going to the going through the further slides how very well different kinds of circulation that we have established today as part of modern physiology was very much well established in Ayurveda Kriya Sharira as well. Tastu pittashayam abhiprapannaha tatrastham eva annapanarasam vipakvam aushnyad vivechayanti. अभिवहन्त्यः शरीरं तर्पयन्ति अर्पयन्ति च ऊर्ध्वगानां तिर्यग्गाणां च रसस्थानां च अभिपूरयन्ति मूत्रपुरीशस्वेदां च विवेचयन्ति. So this explanation is from Sushruta Sharira 9th chapter while discussing about Sira Dhamani Srotas. So they have given this shloka. Let me go through the further slides and come back to the same shloka explaining you why I have highlighted this kriyapada. Okay, one is vivechana karma, second one is abhivahana karma, third tarpana, fourth arpana, then abhipurana, then again vivechana. So these are the 6 levels where the adhogami dhamani is actually doing its function. Do you think that are they mentioning about the portal circulation, the pulmonary circulation, and the systemic circulation? I was amazed by seeing this tika part saying about these 3 circulations in one single tika. We never even imagined that these circulations, which are so much intricate in understanding, are established in one single tika of explaining about dhamani. They're not even speaking about the whole of the body here. They're just speaking about the adhogami dhamani, and they are able to establish what is portal circulation, what might be pulmonary, what might be systemic circulation. Let's go through the slides. As we go through the slides, we will gradually understand how these circulations have been explained. Okay. Adhogami dhamani. So now we are at a stage where Maladhara Kala has divided the Mutra, the Poshaka Mutra Bhava, the Poshaka Purisha Bhava, as well as the Pittadhara Kala had done the Vivechana saying there is Sara Bhaga. So broadly here there is Sara and Kitta, and this Kitta was further divided into Purisha and Mutra, the Poshaka Bhava of these. So now this Sara Bhaga of the digested material as well as the Poshaka Mutra Bhava has to exit from the Koshtha and enter into some circulation, right? So how this happens in the modern physiology point of view, if you think of this, we don't think that Mutra Utpatti is actually happening in GIT for, I mean, in a very broad understanding too, we just take about the nutrient part that we have derived from the food material that we have taken. We just think about the stool formation as happening in the GIT, and we don't give much importance to how Mutra Utpatti actually happens in the GIT. But be with me at this point. As per Ayurveda understanding, Mutra Utpatti, the Poshaka Mutra Bhava, is happening here in this part. So I'll give you why we say this. This explanation was actually taken from. I had thought about this, but didn't know what exactly is the theory. What might be the theory behind it? But when I was going through a book called Sharira Kriya Vignaniyam by Vaidya Shivacharan Dhyani, the Acharya has explained so much in detail about what is Mutra Utpatti and how the Mutra Utpatti happens. So, Ahara Rasa is now transformed into Udaka Bhava. So, it will be in the Drava form. So, whatever the digested material that is entering the Pakvashaya and the Malashaya is actually in the Drava form. Do you agree with me? So, now it is in Drava form. This Poshaka Mutra is the Udaka Bhava, but still it is called as Mutra Utpadaka Tattva. Why? This is in liquid form. I could have just said this is Udaka Bhava, this is Drava Rupi. So why do I have to be so specific in saying this has some Poshaka Mutra Bhava, Mutra Tattva? Okay. Because in this Udaka lies the Parinama Swarupa Tattva Vishesha resulted from the Pachana Kriya at the Pakvashya. For example, indole acetic acid and phenyl sulfate. These are two chemical compounds that we can expect from the differentiating part of the Maladhara Kala while it differentiates the Mutra and the Purisha. So this indole acetic acid and the phenyl sulfate are such molecules which actually further goes into the circulation and helps in the urine formation. So now do we understand why we say Mutra Utpatti is not in Vrikka, Mutra Utpatti is rather in the GIT. Mutra Utpatti happens in the Maladhara Kala. Okay, this is how Acharya has established very properly. Okay, so now we say this Malashaya, Malakhya Mutra or the Poshana Mutra, which has undergone the Shoshana from the Pakvashaya, that is the Brihadantra, leaves for the Yakrit along with the Sara Bhaga and thus is conducted all throughout the body. This we understand just in the terms of modern physiology, but has Ayurveda mentioned about this? Let's see in the shloka. Pittashayam abhiprapannaha tatrastham eva annapanarasam vipakvam aushnyad vivechayanti. So what has happened? Because of the Ushnata, the Annarasa which had entered the Pittashaya has now gone into the digestion. Right? Tatrastham eva, that means to say in the Pittashaya, aushnyat vipakvam annarasam is there. Now it is there in the Pittashaya. What this adhogami dhamani is doing, Pittashayam abhiprapannaha adhogami dhamanyah, the adhogami dhamani which is now entering the Pittashaya, aushnyat vipakvam annapanarasam vivechayanti. So this dhamani is actually helping in the vivechana karma, in the disintegration or in the differentiating karma of the annarasa. It is not just about the pachaka pitta. Now it is not just about the samana vayu. It is actually the adhogami dhamani also has a it's kind of play to do in the digestion, in the differentiation of the digested material. So when we go back to the shloka and understand, saying, see, this is given in a Gadya form. We don't generally think of how to rearrange these terms and understand. So that's why we have rearranged it here. Aushnyat vipakvam annapanarasam. What it is going, what it is undergoing now. Pittashayam abhiprapannaha adhogami damanyaha. Aushnyat vipakvam annapanarasam vivechayanti. So there is one form of annarasa which has already been there in the Pittashaya. Now this anna is getting influenced from the adhogami dhamani that is entering the Pittashaya. Okay. So what these are doing further? विवेचयन्ति इति यथा यथा विपक्वम् अशनरसं तथा तथा पृथक् कुर्वन्ति इत्यर्थः. So we understood until the first kriyapada, that's vivechana. What is the second one? Abhivahanti. Abhivahanti is the second kriyapada that they have given. What is the explanation given for that? Abhitaha sarvato vahanti. So when you think about the anatomy of the large intestine, the omentum, the mesentery, so what comes to your mind? Abhivahanti means. So what we understood here is about, they were talking about the mesenteric veins. Okay, they were talking about the mesenteric veins where this abhivahana happens from all around. I'll show you the picture in the further slides where this vein, how exactly the mesenteric vein is there. Then you will understand why it is not just like from one part they're releasing and entering into some circulation, but the annarasa which is formed in the coils of the small intestine, they have been picked up from everywhere around the coils of the small intestine. This is mesenteric veins. That is what they are explaining here. Abhivahanti iti abhitaha sarvato vahanti. Then they are saying this dhamanis that they have taken, whatever the annarasa or the sarabhaga plus the poshaka mutrabhava which has been picked up from the laghu antra and the brihad antra is now doing the tarpana, which is actually being nutritive. So how do you understand this? The moment I say vein, we understand it is deoxygenated. It doesn't have any particular nutrition part in that. But they are saying, acharyas are saying, it does tarpana, nutrition. How does this happen? And it is not just one part of the body it is doing the tarpana. Rather, it is doing the tarpana of the whole body. Shariram tarpayanti, not sharira anga avayava tarpana. It is about sharira tarpana. Right? Katham punaha sakalam eva shariram taha tarpayanti iti ashankyam aha. So, acharyas, the Dallana acharya also got a doubt, as like how we are doing today. So, we are also getting a doubt how the whole sharira gets the tarpana, right? So, Acharya Dallana is saying, Adhogami Dhamani, which were there, they actually do the arpana. Arpana means to offer. Whatever the nutritive material that the Adhogami Dhamani has collected from the coils of the small intestine, or say Laghu Antra, from the Pittadhara Kala, from the Maladhara Kala, from the Amashya, from all over the GIT, from the Annavahasrotas, from where and all it collected, it is now offering it to some other part. What is that part? Arpayanti cha urdhaganam tiryagganam cha. So, Adhogami Dhamani is offering the material, the nutritive material, what it is carrying, along with the Poshaka Mutra Bhava. It is offering now to the Urdhvaga and the Tiryagami Dhamani. Let's stop at this point and go to further slides and understand what this Urdhvagami Dhamanis are, what are this Tiryagami Dhamani, what are they speaking about. Okay. One thing what we want to establish here, I said, just remember what is this Yakrit doing out of nowhere, out of blue, what it is doing in the Purishadhara Kala. Acharya Sushrita was explaining, Yakrit samantat koshtam cha tatha antrani samashrita undukastam vibhajate malam maladhara kala. So this, according to the modern physiology, as you can, anatomy and physiology, as you can read, this is an extract from the BDC textbook. The liver receives 20% of its blood supply through the hepatic artery and 80% through the portal vein. Before entering the liver, both the hepatic artery and the portal vein divide into right and left branches. Within the liver, they redivide to form the segmental vessels, which further divide to form the interlobular vessels, which run into the portal canals. Further ramifications of the interlobular branches open into the hepatic sinusoids. Thus, the hepatic arterial blood mixes with the portal venous blood in the sinusoids. There are no anastomosis between the adjoining hepatic arterial territories, and hence each branch is an end artery. So this is today's anatomy, today's physiology. But how did acharyas know that actually the nutritive material which is being carried by the adhogami dhamani, which is entering somewhere, which is exiting from the koshta, is actually reaching the yakrit? Because they have clearly mentioned in the Purishadhara Kala, right? Yakrit is one part of the Purishadhara Kala. The action site of the Purishadhara Kala also gets its branches, its range of work is still the Yakrit. How it is? How did they get to know? They had understood this. That liver receives 80% of the blood through the portal vein. So before we spoke about the mesenteric veins, abhivahanti, abhitaha sarvato vahanti. How is this doing the tarpana to the next stage? It is because of the mesenteric veins. See here, this is the part of the mesenteric vein. It has superior mesenteric vein, the inferior mesenteric vein. Most part of the superior mesenteric vein, mostly the superior mesenteric vein is the one we have to be keen on here. So the superior mesenteric vein, as you can see from the diagram, the excerpt diagram on the right side of the PPT. So it is showing you how these are all getting connected into the portal vein and entering the liver. So does it make sense now? What is Abhivahanti? Abhivahanti is the mesenteric vein. Then I'll say why I have taken mesenteric vein only. There are many other veins also, right? There is gastric vein, there is hepatic vein, there is colic, there is duodenal, splenic. Many other veins are also there in this part of the koshta. But why we have taken exactly the mesenteric vein, we'll get to know when we understand one more part of the tika there. Okay, for now, understand Abhivahanti means the mesenteric veins, which are now getting collected to the portal vein, then entering the liver. So now do we understand why Acharya Sushrita said Maladhara Kala also has a range of its action till the Ekrat. Okay. Further moving on, we will know, see, this is the mesenteric artery which are forming like a cascade. There are some end arteries, right? We know that when the certain part of the small intestine has got necrosed, we have to just cut it because the blood supply, there is no anastomosis at this point where we can actually compensate from other part. As the time goes on, it is necrosed and we have to just cut it out and join the two healthy parts of the small intestine. This is what we have been practicing in the modern surgery part. So how this is, there's no compensation here. That is why the mesenteric arteries, veins, and the lymphatic system of the mesenteric region is so very much important. Saying here, see just the first diagram is about mesenteric arteries. In the very same way, the cascade or the arch-like structures have been built for even the mesenteric vein. And the third is for the mesenteric lymph nodes. All these three things which are there in the koshta part forms like a cascade, an arch. You cannot see where there is the entry point, where there is the exit point of these arteries because they are in circular thing. They are in elliptical thing. There is no particular starting and stopping point, ending point for these arteries, veins, and lymph. You will be amazed now if I say the shloka, saying these things which are in circular form has been explained by Dalhana. Let's go back to the Tika part. Katham, see in the third line, Arpayanti ityadi, the highlighted text. In the next, they are saying, Katham Arpayanti ityatra yuktimaha rasasthanam cha abhipurayanti ayam abhiprayaha amavakvashaye. In the ama and the pakvashaya, adho nabihi eva evam annaraso vartuli kruto yatha rasasthanasya puranam karoti. So what is this about Vartuli Krita here? So they are saying there are some adhogami dhamani which are in Vartulakara. So what is this about now? Adhogami dhamani now just didn't mean that they are going in the south direction or they are going down. There are peculiar kind of adhogami dhamani which are actually forming cascades, which are actually forming circular structures, which are interconnected. So this was what I was talking about, the mesenteric veins. See now, is it the same? Adhogami dhamani in the Vartulakara. So the superior mesenteric glands receive the lymph from the jejunum, ileum, cecum, vermiform process and the ascending and the transverse parts of the colon. Lymph drains into the pre-aortic glands. So while we were assessing about what exactly is this Vartulakara and Adhogami Dhamani, we can think about even the mesenteric vein as well as the mesenteric lymph nodes, right? So we couldn't decide at this point of time, how can I establish that this is mesenteric vein only, or this is mesenteric lymph node only, or this is not mesenteric artery. So while we were discussing about that, we got a thing to understand from the Guyton's modern physiology textbook, saying some parts of the nutrients from the small intestine get into the lymph nodes, and some part of the digested material, the Sara Bhaga, the essence part of the digested material, actually enters the mesenteric veins. So this confirmed as saying some ions, electrons, these things enter into the lymph nodes, and they very much essence part, the Drava Bhaga and the Ghana Bhaga, all these enter into the mesenteric veins. So now we understood this Vartulakara, what Acharya was talking about was not just about the veins. He must have also understood there are some other transporting channels which are there in this Antakoshtha, the Malashaya, in the Amapakvashaya region, which are collecting the Sarabhaga as well as the Poshaka Mutrabhava from the GIT, exiting the Koshtha and entering into the Yakrit. Just give importance here. See, these are the lymph node structures explaining about the cisterna chyli. This is one important structure. Then there are some hepatic nodes, superior mesenteric nodes, right and left para-aortic nodes. So what happened here was the lymphatic drainage. When we discovered this, it amazed us so much more how quick, smart, understanding and how sensitive acharyas were in understanding about if this tika, one tika has to be in so much detail, saying about the lymphatic circulation, saying about pulmonary portal circulation. Further, they'll also explain you about systemic and pulmonary. Let's have some patience until then. But they have explained us about lymphatic and portal circulation until now. What is this lymphatic drainage doing now? Most of the lymph vessels from the duodenum end in the pancreatico-duodenal nodes present along the inside curve of the duodenum, that's Pittashaya, that is at the junction of the pancreas and the duodenum. From here, the lymph passes partly to the hepatic nodes. They could have directly gone into some other structure which is way above the umbilical region, right? But why are they even entering the hepatic nodes? They could have taken a straight route, but now they are taking some tiryak kind of a route, right? So hepatic nodes, and through them to the celiac nodes, and partly to the superior mesenteric nodes, and ultimately via the intestinal lymph trunk into the cisterna chyli. Okay. So whatever the lymphatic nodes that are there in the mesenteric region, they are entering into the celiac nodes, into the hepatic nodes, finally into the superior mesenteric nodes, and then into the intestinal lymph trunk, finally ending up in the cisterna chyli. Some vessels from the first part of the duodenum drain into the pyloric nodes also, and through them to the hepatic nodes again. All the lymph reaching the hepatic nodes drains into the celiac nodes. So now do we understand? Yakrit samantat koshtam cha tatha antrani samashrita undukastam vibhajate malam maladharakala. It was not just about the mesenteric vein collecting, forming a bigger channel called a portal vein, which enters the liver, right? Further, we will be discussing how this Mutra Tattva and also other molecules like ammonia, nitrogen, uric acid, how they are actually getting transformed, digested, and leveling up themselves to get back to the systemic circulation. Okay, these all things happen in Yakrat. Okay, let's now go back. These, just keep this in mind. Even mesenteric veins as well as the mesenteric lymph nodes are forming Vartulakara. They both are Adhogami Dhamani, which are actively taking part in the collection of Sarabhaga and the Mutra Tattva from the Maladhara Kala. Okay, just to show you the cisterna chyli once again, this is the part just below the diaphragm. There's a part called as cisterna chyli. So going back to the shloka, now they're saying we discussed about the Kriyapada Vivechana, Kriyapada Abhivahana, Kriyapada Tarpana. So what is this Tarpana doing? We discussed that 80% of the nutritive material what the liver gets is because of the portal vein. It is from a vein. Just keep this in mind. And from where this vein is coming, it is coming from GIT. Okay. This is Tarpana. The first Tarpana after the Annarasa is being formed, the most essence part of the food that we have taken, the first Tarpana is actually happening to the Yakrat. Okay. Then, Katham Punaha Sakalameva Shariram Taha Tarpayanti Ityashankyamaha. So, this is the range of activity of the Adhogami Dhamani. So, how this Dhamani is actually divided into Adhogami, Urdhagami, Tiryagami, keeping Nabhi as the reference point. Okay, this is actually explained. This is not my own theory. This is explained in Sushruta 9th chapter that Nabhi is the reference point of saying Adhogami, whatever the Dhamani that are traveling below, what is the action site of the Dhamani below the Nabhi, they are called Adhogami, and some which are going above the Nabhi region is called as Urdhvagami. Okay, and which are branching out to the peripheral region, they were called as Tiryagami. Fine, this we understood. Next, what is happening now? Adhogami Dhamani has a range of action in the Maladhara, in the Pittadhara Kala region as well as in the Yakrat, but they don't have the force or energy to move into the Urdhva Pradesha, right? So in the Urdhva Pradesha, if they have to travel, then they have to be giving their nutritive material, they have to pass up their nutritive material into a Urdhvagami Dhamani. Because Adhogami Dhamani cannot move to the heart, cannot move to the esophagus, cannot move to the Amasya region, cannot move to the brain region. It has to pass down the nutritive material it has got in its pathway, in its channel. It has to offer this to a channel which is moving in the upward direction. That's Urdhvagami Dhamani and Tiryagami Dhamani. Okay. What it is saying? Vartulikruto yatha rasasthanasya puranam tatascha urdhvagabihi tiryagabhischa tatra tatropaniyata iti sakala sharira tarpanam adhogatanameva karma. So what they are saying, if each and every cell in the body has to get its nutrition, then adhogami dhamani is the karana for it, is the reason for it. Why? Until the liver, the nutritive material is directly from the adhogami dhamani. But to the other parts of the body, indirectly adhogami dhamani is preparing the other dhamanis. Indirectly it is preparing. So urdhvagami and the tiryagami dhamani are giving out this nutritive material to the whole body. So indirectly also it is doing its action, directly also it is doing its action. So in both the parts, the nutritive material to circulate to all the parts of the body, to each and every cell, it is the action of adhogami dhamani. So what this adhogami dhamani is doing now, it now offers to the liver. Okay, this is one part. Now we are coming into the arpayanti, the fourth part of the kriyapada. What it is doing? The mesenteric veins exited from the costa. It joined to form the portal vein. Now these portal veins have differentiated into right and left part. Then they became some venules. Then they entered into the liver histology per se. Okay. So what it is doing now, there are some sinusoids. There is some structures called as sinusoids in the liver where the 20% of the oxygenated blood that's coming from the hepatic artery is also pooling its blood into the sinusoids, as well as the branch of the portal vein which is carrying the nutritive material from the GIT which has collected from the mesenteric vein is also pooling its blood into the sinusoids. So now There is no differentiation as to what is the deoxygenated, what is the oxygenated blood here. All are getting mixed up, right? So it is offering, the portal vein is offering its blood, which is the nutritive blood, to the liver now, to the liver spaces now. So as you can see in this diagram, there is central vein, right? There is a central vein, which then further forms the hepatic vein, then it forms the inferior vena cava. So before that, what is all happening here? As you can see, this is a cross section of the liver lobule. It has Kupffer cells, it has bile duct, hepatic artery, portal vein, hepatic cell. There is space of Disse, and there are some other cells as well in this part, which actually transforms the nutritive material as well as the oxygenated material into one single product, and further it offers to the central vein. Further, it offers to the hepatic vein. Further, it offers to the inferior vena cava. I'm using the word offering. Why? Because the smallest channels become bigger channels. They collude and become bigger channels. They collude and become one bigger inferior vena cava. So, Arpana Kriya, offering is the Kriya which is happening here. So, now do you understand? So this is portal venule, portal arteriole, and the bile duct. They form something called as portal triad. Okay, these hexagonal things are called as the sinusoids. As you can see, these hexagonal things are actually epithelial cells. Okay, so ma'am was saying this point. What she mentioned to me was, as you can see, everywhere in the sharira, epithelial cells have so much tight I mean, they are arranged so much tight that we cannot even observe there are cell junctions in it. There are the intercellular space between the two cells is so much thinned out that that is the characteristic of an epithelial cell. But why it is different in the liver? See here, the epithelial cells are so much demarcated. They have some spaces in between where exactly some bigger molecules can travel, which couldn't travel inside smaller venules, they could travel in these spaces, right? So whatever the molecules that couldn't enter the venule can actually travel in this part and enter into the lymphatic system. This is what happens in the liver. That is why I said Vartulakriti was not just with the mesenteric vein, it was also with the mesenteric lymph nodes. They travel into the superior mesenteric nodes. They travel into the hepatic nodes. Then they travel into the thoracic part of the lymph. Okay. Now do you get this? Fine. Now it is arranged as hexagonal structures. They are in layers. They just pull out the blood. Even the vein pulls out the blood. Even the artery pulls out the blood, and the transformation happens here. Just keep this in mind. Urine doesn't get ammonia, uric acid, and urea if liver didn't offer it. Okay. This ammonia, uric acid, urea are all supplied to the urine for the excretion from the liver. Okay, this is because of the transformation that is happening in the space of Disse. So Kedara Kulya Nyaya at 3 sites, Yakrit, Hridaya and Vrukka. How it is happening in the Yakrit, I'll give a brief description. So Kedara Kulya Nyaya is happening like this. How the mesenteric vein pulling into the portal, then portal pulling into the liver. This is Kedara Kulya Nyaya. Just giving you, recalling the physiology that we had learned in the first year. Kedara Kulya Nyaya is the supply of the water in the channels in a field where the crops are grown. We have to water the field, and we have set up few channels where we have to turn on at one point, and water just travels into different locations of the field, right? But pooled in the one single part. That's Kedara Kulya Nyaya. This is what is happening in the liver according to the Kedara Kulya Nyaya. That means to say it is harboring the Kedara Kulya Nyaya, and this action is happening. Then how is this Kale Kapota Nyaya happening? See here, the sinusoid is there, one central vein is there, and apart from that there are some venules, but there is also these spaces in the middle. So what I said, some bigger molecules like proteins, which are of 2 to 6 nanometer, cannot travel into the venules. They actually travel in these spaces. Okay, so this is the differentiation. Because these proteins also entered into the systemic circulation further, but they cannot enter from the inferior vena cava. They actually enter from the lymphatic system. I'll just show you how this will happen. Lymphatic system, as you can see, cisterna chyli is there, and then it travels above, and then it pulls into the, see here, even from the azygous vein, from the hemiazygous vein, they all travel together, and further it pulls into the left subclavian vein. Okay, so the proteins move through the lymph channel, and further the other nutritive part travels from the inferior vena cava. So this is what I was talking about, the Kale Kapota Nyaya. So what might be the Kshiradadi Nyaya that is happening in the Yakrit? It might be the bile production. Okay, further. Lymph circulation in the liver. This is one article from the PubMed saying the liver produces a large amount of lymph, which is estimated to be 25 to 50% of the lymph flowing through the thoracic duct. Whatever the things that I have marked, just go through it. Hepatic lymph primarily comes from the hepatic sinusoids. Our tracer studies together with the electron microscopy show many channels with collagen fibers traversing through the limiting plate and connecting the space of Disse with the interstitial space either in the portal tracts or around sublobular veins. The fluid filtered out of the sinusoids into the space of Disse flows through the channels traversing the limiting plate either independently of the blood vessels or along the blood vessels and enters the interstitial space of either the portal tract or the sublobular veins. So now do you understand how much meticulously this tika has been written by Dallanacharya for the Adhogami Dhamani shloka of the Sushruta, saying mesenteric veins pull into the portal veins, pull into the liver. The mesenteric lymph nodes pull in to the superior mesenteric nodes, to the portal nodes, to the hepatic nodes, then to the thoracic or the cisterna chyli, and then to the thoracic nodes. So do you understand what is vivechana, what is abhivahana, what is tarpana, what is arpana, right? Then further we had one more thing. What is abhipurana and vivechana? What is this abhipurana karma? What it was doing before? Okay, see here. Just a golden line that I have just marked. Just go through the shloka there. Okay. Rasasthanam cha hridayam. What we understood? From the portal vein into the liver, the transformation had happened. Finally, the whole transformed liquid now enters into the inferior vena cava. What this inferior vena cava is doing? Now, adhogami dhamani range of action is over. Inferior vena cava is a urdhvagami dhamani now. Students, please don't confuse the dhamani, sira, srotas as dhamani is artery, vein is sira, and srotas is some other channel. No. Where and all this urdhva thing comes, even in the inferior vena cava, I must remind you there are valves. There is some dhamata action which is happening in the inferior vena cava also. Why? Because it is traveling against gravity. So don't think why ma'am is mentioning about urdhvagami dhamani and she is saying inferior vena cava. Doesn't she know that venous channel is not dhamani and venous should be sira? No. Urdhvagami dhamani here clearly means inferior vena cava and it traveling upwards, and then it is doing the purana. It is filling the hridaya now. Rasasthana. Hridaya is the rasasthana. So the tika clearly says sakala sharira tarpanam adhogatanam eva karma rasasthanam cha hridayam. तत्पूरणं च तन्निष्पादितरसपरम्परया न पुनः साक्षादेव अधोगमत्वेन आसाम् ऊर्ध्वगमना अभावात् हृदयगमनमेव नास्ति इति तत्र मूत्रपुरीशस्वेदांश्च विवेचयन्ति पृथक् कुर्वन्ति पक्वान्नरसादिति सम्बन्धः. पित्ताशये कर्मतासां निर्दिश्यम् आमपक्वाशयान्तरे निर्दिशन्नाः पचनं पक्वं भावेक्तः तस्याशयः पक्वाशयः एतेन आमस्य पच्यमानस्य यदन्तरं तत्र इत्यर्थः द्वे अन्नवाहिनी and आन्त्राश्रिते न हि पित्ताशये रसमूत्रपुरीशभावेन विविच्यमानस्य आहारस्य अन्नभावो अस्ति. So the whole tika, just not to confuse you, I'm just for the flow of my thoughts, I was reading the whole 4 shlokas, 4 lines of the tika. It is just saying now about the systemic circulation. Okay, now we have entered into the systemic circulation of venous system and the arterial system. Until now, we spoke about the mesenteric portal circulation, the lymphatic circulation. Now we have ended up into the systemic circulation. I had asked you one question, right? Are they mentioning about portal, pulmonary, and systemic circulation? Now we have discovered this. What is portal? What is systemic circulation? Further also we have systemic circulation. Okay. So next, further, moving on. Okay. What is this? The liver, which has many lymph nodes. Then the lateral diaphragmatic nodes, pericardial nodes. This side the pericardial nodes, the lateral diaphragmatic nodes on either sides, the cardiac nodes, hepatic nodes, celiac nodes, all traveling into the thoracic nodes, the cisterna chyli and the further thoracic duct. Okay. Now, what has happened? The inferior vena cava has done the purana. Inferior and the superior, inferior vena cava and the superior vena cava, they have filled out the blood into the hridaya. What we have understood until now is the sthana of hridaya, the sthana of the rasa dhatu is hridaya. But nowhere did we come across the explanation about how the ahara rasa, the sara bhaga, which had travelled way away from the GIT through the liver, through the inferior vena cava to the heart, suddenly changed into rasa dhatu. Right? You might be thinking I might be deviating so much from the Mutra topic, but not so. Students, please be with me for this point of the lecture. Why I am mentioning so much in detail about these 4 circulations is because if anywhere in these 4 circulations go wrong, anywhere it might be the mesenteric, portal, systemic and the pulmonary circulation. Anytime any place it goes wrong, it has it has a very bad effect on the mutra, utpatti and pravritti. That is why I am giving so much importance here. Okay. Okay, just recollect now. The Annapachana had happened in the Pittadhara Kala. Vivechana was there, Sara and Kitta. Entered into the Laghu Antra, then to the Brihad Antra. Then Undukastham, that is the Purushadhara Kala or the Maladhara Kala, divided it into Mutra and Purisha. These Mutra and Purisha were not the Mutra and Purisha which were ready to be excreted, but rather they were the Poshaka Mutra and the Poshaka Purisha Bhava. Okay. This Poshaka Mutra Bhava along with the Sara Bhaga of the food entered into the Vartula Kriti Adhogami Dhamani, said as mesenteric veins and lymph nodes, then entered into the portal veins, then entered into the liver, Arpana was done, then Abhipurana was done. How? Portal vein, hepatic vein and the inferior vena cava travelled into the heart. Now the heart, one part of the heart is filled totally with the Purana Rakta and the Purana Ahara Rasa that has been brought from the vena cavas. Okay. Now the question what I asked is, how this Ahara Rasa which entered the Hridaya suddenly changed into Rasa Dhatu? Because nowhere in the textbooks we find this explanation. Okay. It's rather disappointing to say that we don't get the explanation, but yes, we don't get the explanation. So what happens here? So what exactly happens here has been explained by the Avalambaka Kapha Shloka. This is the Avalambaka Kapha Shloka from the Ashtanga Hridaya saying, Avalambaka Kapha has 3 functions. 1. Trikasya Avalambanam, Second, hridayasya avalambanam. Third, kapadhamnam cha sheshanam avalambanam. This shloka doesn't stop there. It has also explained how avalambana karma is being done in this region. Avalambana is to give strength, to provide strength, okay, for the proper establishment, for the proper functioning of these three places. How bala, the strength is offered, is what the function of avalambaka kapha. So Acharya also explains how it is happening. Fine. Urastaha sa trikasya svaviryataha. So with its own potency, it is giving bala to the trika region. But while it comes to the hridaya region, avalambaka kapha is in itself is not capable or sufficient to give the bala to the hridaya. So what it is doing, it is extracting the potency from the annavirya. Can you just see there? Hridayasya annaviryacha tatastha. The explanation in the tika part, please see the second line saying Hridayasya annaviryat, annaviryena abhyavahritad annat rasarupata parinatat tadviryena tadbalena avalambanam karoti. Right? Are you getting the point here? Okay. So what it is? The avalambaka kapha, in order to give strength to the hridaya, it is actually extracting the bala from the annavirya. That means to say the annarasa which has entered the hridaya, from that, is it extracting? Or from the rasa dhatu which is being further produced, from that it is extracting? Okay. Now we will take a pause, go back to the Srotas, Sroto Mula that we had understood way back in first year or second year. While Acharya Charaka says Pranavahasrotas, it is two, and he says there is a Hridaya and Dashachadamanyaha. Fine. Then in Sushruta, what happens? Sushruta, how Acharya Sushruta explains about the Pranavahasrotas and the Rasavahasrotas. He says the Sroto Mula for both Pranavahasrotas and Rasavahasrotas are the same. So how do you understand this? Actually, they were speaking at that time about the pulmonary circulation that is happening. Okay. So what they have said here is, wait, let me get the reference. Okay. Tatra pranavahe dve tayor moolam hrudayam rasavahinyascha dhamanyah. Okay. He has clearly said Tatra pranavahe dve tayor moolam hrudayam rasavahinyascha dhamanyah. And also, while explaining about the Rasavahasrotas, he says that Rasavahe dve tayor moolam api hridayam rasavahinyasya damanyah. Both are same. So what is happening here? So let's understand a little bit more. Okay. So what he is saying, rasavahinyasya damanyah can also be told as pranavahinyasya damanyah. These pranavahinyasya damanyah might be bronchi. So what he is saying, Nabhista Pranapavanaha, the respiration thing, what we had understood from Sharangadara Shloka. Nabhista Pranapavanaha Sprishtva Hritkamalantaram Kantat Bahir Vinaryati Patum Vishnupadamritam. So what he is trying to say here is about the Rasavaha also having Hridaya and Rasavahi Damaniya Srotomula, Pranavaha also having Hridaya and Rasavahi Dhamani as its Srotomula. Keeping these two things in the mind, in the slide that is there, in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, sixth line from above, there is a quotation that I have highlighted or written in brighter form. Raso yaha swachhatam yataha sa tatraiva avatishtati. So what does this mean? Yataha is one such term. The other perspective of the meaning for yataha is yanaha. Yanaha is the movement. So, which kind of rasa has now entered the hridaya? Because which is actually helping the avalambaka kapha? It is saying the rasa which has actually pooled, rasa dhatu which is actually pooled to the hridaya, it has traveled from somewhere and which is actually swachhatam yataha. That means to say, which has actually been purified. this ahara rasa which had entered the hridaya now has gone into some kind of purification, and now it has traveled back to the hridaya and staying in the hridaya as rasadhatu. So where this is ahara rasa went and got purified and came back to the to be presented as rasadhatu in the hridaya, it went to the puppusa. What it got there? In the puppusa, it was pranavahasrotas. So in the pranavahasrotas, through the Vishnu Padamrita, the oxygen, it got oxygenated. Blood already had the nutritive part. Blood already had the sara part. Blood already had the ahara rasa part. But what was missing in it? The missing part in that ahara rasa was oxygen, Vishnu Padamrita. So now it got this from the pulmonary circulation. They have clearly mentioned raso yaha swachhatam yataha sa tatraiva avatisthate. So which avalambaka kapha, in order to give strength to the hridaya, from where does it extract the strength? It extracts the strength from the rasadhatu. From where this rasadhatu came? Rasadhatu came to the hridaya, getting purified from somewhere else and then entered hridaya. Okay, so what is actually happening here? The tika that we had discussed before, now saying that there it has said rasasthanasya hridayam tan nishpadita rasasya natu swaviryena. Okay, natu sarvashaha. That means to say directly it is not giving into the systemic circulation, rather it is actually helping, it is actually deriving the energy from the rasa which has entered, which has purified from somewhere and entered into the hridaya. This now enters into the systemic circulation. This is the vivechana karma which is happening again. Okay, finally now we got into the fourfold circulation system of lymphatic circulation, the portal, the systemic circulation, first part, then again the pulmonary circulation, then again into the systemic circulation. So what the systemic circulation means here? The rasavahinasya damanyaha, dashacha damanyaha, rasavahanam dve tayormulam hridayam, that is the purified ahara rasa traveled back into the hridaya, got its seat there, rasavaha dve tayormulam hridayam, then again dashacha damanyaha. Okay. Just giving the recollecting what are all we discussed today. So in the koshta, Anna entered the koshta in the Annavahasrotas. Action of Agni, Pachaka Pitta, Samana Vayu. Then action site was Pitta Dharakala and the Purisha Dharakala. So when this Ahara Rasa, the Sarabhaga and the Mutra Tattva, that is the Poshaka Mutra Tattva, exits the koshta, enters the Vartulikarana and the Sakala Sharira Tarpana with the mesenteric portal and the hepatic veins. Adogami Dhamani through the Urdhagami Dhamani and Tiryagami Dhamani, that is inferior vena cava. Finally, does the Rasasthana Purana and enters the Hridaya. Then what happens? It exits the Hridaya through the Dashavahi Dhamanis. Then from the Mutravahi Dhamani, there is something called as Mutravahe Dve. Srotas is also there, that is a different part. But Mutravahi Dhamanis are there. There are two Mutravahi Dhamanis. So what they do, they exit the Dashavahi Dhamani exits the Hridaya. Then at certain place in the travel, it gets differentiated as Mutravahi Dhamani. Finally, it enters the Vrukka and then the Basti. Okay, this is the second episode of the video series. So I'm not taking this topic today. Mutra Pravritti is a different part. So only Mutra Utpatti we have discussed today. So what happened finally? Through the two Mutravahi Dhamani, it entered the Vrukka and then the Basti. The Utpatti has not yet completely formed. Just bear in the mind. Utpatti from the GIT, then its circulation, and now it has entered to the main part, that is Vrukka. Here also little Mutra Utpatti part is remaining. Let's take it into the next class. So quantity of Mutra is one thing that we had to discuss. Acharya have mentioned it as Chatvaro Mutrasya. This is from Circulatory 7th chapter, saying there is Chaturangula, that is there is 4 angula, 4 anjali of Mutra that is being produced in the body. So just in brief, Pachakapitta, Samanavayu, Pranavayu, Vyanavayu and Apanavayu were the different doshas, that I mean to say subtypes, the play of subtypes of dosha. This was one topic we had discussed in the Ajirna. So similarly here in the Mutra Utpatti, it's Pachakas, Pitta, Samanavayu, Pranavayu, Vyanavayu and Apanavayu. Why? Pachaka Pitta for digestion, Samanavayu for differentiation, Pranavayu for the pulmonary circulation, then the Vyanavayu for the Dashacha Damanyaha, then the Apanavayu for the Mutra Pravritti. Then what are all the sites? The Rachana Sharira, which is helping Grahani, the Pittadhara Kala, then moving into the Pakvashaya, then the Maladhara Kala from Mala, that is Pakvashaya and the Yakrit, from the Yakrit moving to the Hridaya, from Hridaya to Damani, Damani to Vrukka. Then further we will discuss in the next class. Okay. I hope, I know clearly that today's topic was a very elaborative topic taking about 2 hours of discussion continuously. You might have got doubts in middle. I'm sorry, I couldn't take the doubts in the middle. You can always text me or when you take up our course on Ayu-Chintana Telegram. Of course, you get the access to ask us the doubts and we can discuss further. So I hope the discussion today was a fruitful one. And for any further queries, you can opt to subscribe to Ayu-Chintana on YouTube as well as on Telegram so that we can discuss further. And also the course offer is always available. Thank you. I'll end with a shloka. रागादिरोगान् सततानुशक्तानशेषकायः प्रसृतानशेषान् औत्सुक्यमोहारतिदान् जघान यो पूर्ववैद्याय नमोऽस्तु तस्मै।